right, guys, welcome to the second episode of Turnover on Downs. I'm your host, Jake Dom, and as he joins me every week is my good friend Kyle. How's it going, Kyle?
Not too bad. How's it going, Jake?
Oh, it's going pretty good. That was a pretty good week of football we just got to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's some good games all the way around. That was a pretty exciting week.
Well, yeah, with all that exciting week, what performance stuck out to you the most?
Overall, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the game. I was actually working early on Sunday, but Todd Gurley's performance, broke his rushing yards, broke his rushing yards record. He had 208 yards on only 28 carries, 2 TDs, averaged over 7 yards a carry, which is pretty impressive. He also is the first 200-yard rusher since Marshall Faulk in 2001. So kind of some history there. But yeah, overall, just good performance by Todd Gurley.
Yeah, he played really well. The whole Rams team did. And, I mean, obviously they're only undefeated team left for a reason. I know they got a couple hard games coming up, so we'll definitely see how long that lasts. For my performance of the week, as much as I hate to do this, but I have to go with Aaron Rodgers. I hate the Packers probably more than most people, but this man went 25 for 46, 425 yards, and led an amazing comeback. They probably shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place against that 49ers team, but he really doesn't have a lot of help around him. I watched that game. His receivers look useless a lot of the time. He's really making all this plays for this team. And if less Aaron Rodgers is perfect, that is the only way they're winning games. And he just happened to be perfect that night, and he got it done at the end of the day. Scored 10 points in less than 2 minutes to win the game, especially that last drive to cap it all off where he started from his other 10 and drove basically down to the other team's 10 in a pretty quick fashion with no timeouts. He was just he definitely surprised me, and he just does Aaron Rodgers things.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Rodgers is always on another level. But yeah, it was kind of a weird situation that they were down to San Francisco late in the game. But yeah, what an amazing comeback there.
So the next thing we want to talk about, well, we will get into our predictions of from last week, but we want to try something new this week. We're going to do a bold prediction. So I know, Kyle, this was your idea. We talked about it. So I'm going to let you take over on this one. I'm going to let you give your bold prediction first.
So kind of had a hard time. There's a couple of ones that I wanted to go with, a couple of predictions that I think will happen, but maybe the boldest and the one that I not guarantee, but I'm pretty sure is going to happen. Kind of, I guess, going over a little bit what we just went over with Aaron Rodgers, except I'm going against Aaron Rodgers, and I'm saying that the Packers will miss the playoffs. They won't win the division. They won't even get a wild card spot. And to be fair, a pretty stacked NFC. Just to list off some of their remaining games. They're in New England. They're at the Rams. They're at Seattle. They still played in Minnesota. Home game against the Falcons, which Falcons haven't had the best season, but they can put up points with anyone. Definitely a losable game there. And then still at the Bears, at the Jets, which I think are a pretty sneaky good team. And then home against the Lions, which we already had their number once this year. So definitely, pretty one of the toughest schedules I think remaining for any team. Another couple of things, Rodgers, I think you mentioned that he really doesn't have a whole lot around him, so he's got to be absolutely perfect. And while he is pretty much perfect almost week in and week out, I just think that's too many hard games, too many hard road games for him to come back and win every single week without more receivers than just Devontae Adams and Graham by then. Their defense has been all right, just kind of average. And then, just most of that tough schedule, I just don't see them winning enough games to put them in the playoffs with this stacked NFC this year.
Well, especially, I do not think he's fully healthy still. That's my opinion. I still think that's a big factor going forward, and definitely with all those big games, I just don't know if he's going to have enough to do it. When is this Green Bay organization slander going to start happening? Because they have the best quarterback, arguably the most talented quarterback ever, and they still have to barely pull it out against a 49ers team that lost their starting quarterback. So I think there's going to be a lot of question marks. I could definitely see it going that way. And I think if they don't miss the playoffs, Mike McCarthy is definitely on a hot seat. If not, he's going to be out of there. They're just too talented of a quarterback to not be putting talent around him. So my bold prediction, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this one, but I don't think Tampa Bay should give up on Jameis Winston just yet. He did play pretty well against that Atlanta team. I know they don't have the best defense, but he didn't play. This is the first game he started of the season, and he threw for over almost 400 yards on 30 of 41 attempts with 4 TDs and only 2 interceptions. I know one of those interceptions did come a little late, too, when they were trying to come back. This guy had over 4,000 yards in his first 2 seasons. He did take a little dip down last season by only throwing 3,500 yards, but he's only 24 years old. A talented quarterback like that is really hard to come by in today's NFL, and I know a lot of people all over social media have been kind of getting off the Jameis train, and I just don't think Tampa Bay should go away just yet. I do think their coach is an issue. I don't think he's the best offensive coach, and they definitely do have some weapons down there. Both those tight ends have been playing pretty well this season, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans. The big problem is I do think they need a running back. Why they're not in contention for Le'Veon Bell right now, I will never know. I think that'd be a really good landing spot for Le'Veon Bell, and it would also be a really good fit for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think they should try to make a run at him, try to see what they need to give up. But I think it'll be worth it for that team. They, like you said, they got a lot of weapons on offense. I'm not the biggest Jameis believer, but we'll leave that for another discussion.
All right, well, let's get in our predictions from last week. I think we should start off with the Sunday Night Football, the game everybody was talking about. We had Tom Brady dueling with the new young guy trying to come for his throne, and Tom Brady just did Tom Brady things, and the New England Patriots end up pulling this out 43-40. It would look like it was going to be a New England blowout, but Mahomes stayed strong. He had a couple interceptions in that first half. He really came back and threw 4 touchdowns on the day. I don't know if you've seen this stat, but the Chiefs managed to score 31 points in the second half, and they only had the ball for 10 minutes.
Wow.
That alone, I just think is substantial, and it really shows you like how good Mahomes can be. That play made all those plays he was making Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had 7 catches for 142 yards and 3 TDs. Hunt had a big day. I think that whole Chiefs offense did show. They were in Foxborough and they only lost by 3. It's definitely not an easy place to go play, and he went toe-to-toe with one of the greats.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Mahomes had another great outing. Like you said, he stumbled a little bit earlier, but yeah, he came back. They were, put up a lot of points that second half. Kareem Hunt had a really good game, 80 yards. Tyreek Hill, like you mentioned, 142 yards. That's pretty crazy. On the other side of the ball, Brady played like Brady. That rushing touchdown was kind of funny. You don't see that too often, other than on the 1 yard line, him rushing it in. I think you got to give a shout out to Sonny Michel. He's had a great season so far. He's one of the up and coming rookie rushers this year. He had 24 rushes for 106 yards and 2 TDs. I think that's his at least second, maybe third 100-yard rushing game of the season. Some pretty impressive stuff out of him. And then Gronk just doing Gronk things, 3 receptions, almost 100 yards there.
And not to mention both those receptions coming in key moments of the game. A lot, like 2 of those coming really late when they really needed it. And I also did want to mention the whole Patriots thing. They started out 1-2, and all of a sudden they're 4-2. They were rattled off 3 straight W's with scoring 38+. That's pretty great. Their defense really is – that's the thing that's going to be their Achilles heel going forward. Obviously, Tom Brady can put the points on the board, but we're going to have to see if that defense can hold up come playoff time. And I think this was definitely a big game because this could easily be the AFC Championship game, and they definitely won home field. So let's talk about a team that is kind of struggling right now to get their division in place. Let's talk about Jacksonville. Jacksonville versus Kansas City last week, and everybody thought that their defense allowing that was just, a one-off week. But then they go to Dallas, and, I did pick Jacksonville to win this game. I didn't think Dallas would be able to pull that off, but they ended up putting 40 points on this great Jacksonville defense. And I know that you also took Jacksonville, so we both were wrong on that pick, but Dallas came out and they really show what kind of offense they can be when they are clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. I didn't hear anybody picking the Cowboys to win, especially not in that fashion. Their defense held up. Jacksonville's offense is not the best anyway, but Bortles had 150 yards, a TD, and an interception. Not a whole lot going in there to their rushing game. TJ Yeldon had 50-some yards right around there. Prescott played pretty well, had TDs, and then he rushed for another. No interceptions there. And then obviously Steve off, he had 106 yards and another touchdown. It was a surprising game. But I think Dallas might be kind of coming into their own in the right part of the season. That division is open to really anybody, but maybe the Giants. A really close race coming down there.
Yeah, I don't know why the Jacksonville. I know Fournette's out, so their running game is a little crippled. But Yeldon has shown that he can run the ball a little bit, and especially with the way that Dallas offense is clicking, I don't know how you only give him 8 rushes on the day. He did have 41 yards, so it's not like he was doing bad. And I just think Blake Bortles is just showing that he's not a franchise QB. If anything, he's just an above-average backup. And I think if almost any other quarterback would this Jacksonville with that defense would be one of the best teams in the league. You've seen it on the sideline. Jalen Ramsey would just sit there throwing his hands in the air, and all the other players were just shocked at what kind of throws he was making. So I'm really interested to see how that situation works going forward. But let's talk about another team that you just mentioned in the NFC East with some QB trouble. I did thought the Giants would bounce back a little bit this week and beat a struggle Philly team. But Philly ended up showing why they did win the Super Bowl last year. Carson Wentz kind of came back to the form he was early last season, and they pulled this one out 34-14. I know you took the Eagles, Kyle. What did you think of their performance?
They came back. I think I mentioned last week that they, off to a pretty subpar start to their season, at least at what they expected. Obviously, winning the Super Bowl last year. Wentz was back. 3 TDs, no picks, almost 300 yards there. They got a bunch of players on offense clicking. Aguilar had 3 catches for 91 yards. Jeffrey had 74 yards and 2 TDs. So the offense was playing really well there. Their defense was finally able to get back on track as well. They're getting after Eli a lot. One stat I kind of thought was a little bit crazy is the Giants actually outgained the Eagles 420 yards to 360 yards. So I thought that was kind of crazy, just with such a lopsided score. I thought that was a little bit weird. I didn't expect to see that.
Yeah, can we just talk about how good Saquon Barkley's been? He had 13 rushes for 130 yards and a TD on the day, not to mention the 99 yards he had through the air. He put over 200 yards scrimmaging. He basically has his offense on his back right now, and that's with teams knowing that Eli can't throw down the field. And he's still putting up those kind of numbers. It's really hard to argue with the Giants' pick to go with Barkley, but looking at their QB trouble right now, it really makes you question why they at least didn't go for Kirk Cousins in free agency. Because I think if you throw Kirk Cousins on this offense right now, they're arguably maybe the best team in the NFC. With the way Saquon Barkley's playing, Sterling Shepard's definitely a good number 2 receiver, and OBJ just needs someone to get him that ball. So I think if they did have a better quarterback, the Giants would be a lot better of a team, and the NFC East would definitely be a lot more interesting a division.
I definitely agree with you there. Eli has looked pretty awful. That game was kind of tough to watch. He was overthrowing receivers, underthrowing receivers. It was a little bit ugly. Obviously, a long ways away from his 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So, speaking of speaking of the last year's draft, going into the Chargers-Browns game, I bet the Browns are kind of regretting not drafting Barkley, and then they still could have gotten Mayfield later on with their second pick. Would you agree on that one?
I do. I kind of do agree with you there because I was on the camp that they should take Barkley. But the thing was, if they did think that Mayfield was that dude, I think they did make the right decision on going to get him. Because I just think this is a quarterback-driven league, no matter how good your running back is. And there were rumblings that the Giants did like Mayfield as well. So you don't know if the Giants could have took him at 2 and then they could have lost out on their guy. And especially with the Browns organization, just being the way it is, that just would have been a disaster if they didn't get the guy they wanted, especially, obviously they already won 2 games, which is double the amount they won the last 2 years. So I'm definitely a believer in Mayfield, so it's hard to really do say it's a wrong pick, especially right now. Yeah, let's get right into that Browns game. Me and you, even with the Browns, we both did take the Chargers, and they won pretty convincingly. They basically went into coast mode that second half. They won 38-14. Rivers only threw 20 times for 27, a little bit over 200 yards. He had 2 TDs, but Gordon was the real person in this game. He had 132 yards on 18 rushes, not to mention the 3 TDs. What do you think of the Chargers right now? Do you think they're on that same? I know a lot of people are saying they're pretty good at the team. Do you think they're right up there with the Patriots, Chiefs, and Rams, or do you think they're pretty below that still?
I definitely think they're top 3 in the AFC. I'd put them behind Tom Brady and Mahomes, but I think they're the 3rd best team in that entire conference there. Like you mentioned last week, their only 2 losses now are to the Rams and the Chiefs, which I would put above them. They were up 35-6 in that game, and the Browns defense has looked really good all year. So to put 38 on them, that's pretty impressive.
So let's transition over to another AFC North teams. The Bengals and the Steelers played. I know I took the Bengals this game, and I thought I was about to be right, but what do you know? Antonio Brown just did Antonio Brown type things and he took an amazing catch and brought it all the way down to give the Steelers a touchdown lead with about a minute left. And obviously Andy Dalton's not that he's been playing really well this season. I'm not trying to slander Andy Dalton, but he couldn't go down and get it done. So Steelers end up winning that game 28-21. Connor, he's just been showing how good he can be. He had 111 yards on 2 TDs, only 19 attempts. Everyone thought that Bell was going to be missed, but Connor's really showing that he can play that role just as well as Bell was playing in that role. And it does kind of make you question that Bell's value overall, and I really do think Bell is losing himself some money right now with the way Connor's playing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Not to take anything away from Connor, but to put this young guy in there in Bell's place, and just to have him play, maybe not quite as good as Bell has been playing the last couple of years, but really, really close. Kind of says something about maybe the system that he was playing with, that offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely don't think it's really been helping Bell to be sitting. But we can go back and forth on that all day. It's kind of a hot topic right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. I definitely do think Bell has some potential. I just do not think he's worth the money that he's asking for. But we don't need to hammer the Bell situation home. So I ended up going 3-2 on my picks. I think Kyle ended up going 4-1. So hopefully I can do a little bit better this week. So we're going to hop right into those. So first off, I want to talk about our team. Detroit is traveling to Miami. We're coming off a bye week. Miami did have an impressive win over Chicago, but we don't even know who their starting QB is going to be. Coming off an injury, Ryan Tannehill, or is it going to be Brock Osweiler, arguably the worst $72 million QB there ever was. He did play pretty well, and they definitely I think we are going to be able to prepare for him, and I am going to take the Lions in this game.
Yeah, that was my prediction as well. I think this is going to be a really close one, especially going into Miami. It's going to be a tough one there, but I think Stafford is going to pull it out. I think we're going to have a big game off Kerryon Johnson. I don't think that the Dolphins' defense is very good, and I think we're going to be able to capitalize on that. And like you mentioned, we're not sure who's going to be starting. Osweiler did look good last week, especially against a really good Bears defense, but we'll see if that's the same Brock Osweiler or it's the Houston Texans Brock Osweiler. So something to look for there. I also do think that the Lions are finally going to stop the run. I think Patricia's going to figure that out. He's going to stop Drake and Gore, and I think we're going to finally get out of the hot seat on those big rushing games from all of our opponents.
Well, hopefully we can stop Frank Gore. He has to be about, 72 years old at this point.
He had a good game last week. He had over 100 yards.
Yeah, I know, but, hopefully we can stop aging Frank Gore. But let's go back to that team that Miami beat. Chicago, after that tough loss to Miami, they got another challenge this week with New England coming to town. Coming off that win over the Chiefs. And I think they're going to be ready to go for Chicago, even with that great defense. I think Brady has shown with those great pass rushers he can get the ball out quick to make that pass rush obsolete, or even they can hand the ball off to Sony Michel and run over that defense just the way that Miami did against them. Either way, I think one of those two, if not both, happen, and New England wins this game.
I also picked the Patriots to win this week. I think it'll be close. I think Trubisky is going to have a pretty decent game, but ultimately I think he's going to choke in the end. He's looked good, and I still think he's going to be a pretty decent QB, but I'm just not completely sold on him. And like you said, Tom Brady, Sony Michel, Gronk, and we're going to have a great day on offense. I don't think that Bears defense is going to be able to stop them, at least, enough to get the win. Patriots obviously got 3 in a row, so they got the momentum on their side, and they had that rough. The Bears had that rough loss to Miami last week. So yeah, definitely the Patriots. I'd say within 7 points or so.
So let's go over to that team that the Patriots beat last week. They do have another hard challenge this week with Cincinnati coming to town. Cincinnati surprised a lot of people this season. They've really shown that Andy Dalton's shown that he's actually a halfway decent quarterback this year. Mixon's back, and he's been really helping that run game. And they have some playmakers on this outside with Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green. But I think overall, Kansas City offense is going to be too much for this defense. I think they're going to be hungry, definitely go get another win after they almost beat New England. They're going back to Arrowhead, which is not an easy place to play, and that crowd's going to be rocking. So I think I'm going to take Kansas City in this game, probably maybe by a touchdown or two.
Okay. I agree with you there. Sticking with your picks. I'm taking the Chiefs as well. If it was in Cincinnati, I'd say maybe it's a different story. But like I said, in Arrowhead, tough place to play. I'm going to take them to win. I think it's going to be another close one as well. At least I hope so. I'll definitely be tuning into this one. It should be a good game. I think they switched that one to the Sunday night game, so it'll be fun to watch. But yeah, that offense I think will ultimately kind of outscore anything that Andy Dalton can throw at them. And then the Cincinnati defense is just kind of average. So, and I also think there's going to be kind of a hangover off that pretty tough loss to Pittsburgh, kind of heartbreaking fashion there.
Let's talk about another team that has taken a rough loss last week. The Carolina Panthers. They're traveling to Philly this week. The way Philly looked, it's going to be a tough one. Carolina's coming off that loss to Washington, but they did get Greg Olsen back last week, so I think they had to work to introduce him back in the offense. And they do have a few playmakers. Christian McCaffrey's been playing really well this season. Cam Newton's been playing pretty well too. But they are going to Philly, and that defense is pretty legit. It's definitely going to be a close one. This is definitely my toss-up of the week. I could definitely see it going either way. But I think with Greg Olsen coming back and getting one more weekend, getting more comfortable, and that's been one of Cam's favorite targets his whole career, I think they're going to pull it out against this Philly team whose secondary does struggle once in a while.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you here. I'm going to go with the Eagles in Philadelphia. I think they're rolling after that big win last week against the Giants. I think Carson Wentz is going to put up another really good game with Aguilar, with Alshon Jeffrey. I'm not completely sold on the Panthers. I think the Panthers can probably beat anybody in the league. It's just they're really wishy-washy. They're up and down. It's hard to say which team you're going to get. Are you going to get the good one, with Cam Newton on point, rushing the ball, all of that, or are you going to get the below-average Panthers that, kind of choke big games?
The last game I want to talk about today is New Orleans versus Baltimore. New Orleans this season has been averaging the most points per game. They're averaging 36 points per game. They've been the best offense in the league, I think. So obviously, points-wise, they have. Even with their defense being pretty below average, to say the least. And they're traveling to Baltimore. Baltimore has only allowed 14 points or less in 5 of the 6 games they played this season. So that's pretty amazing. I do think that, especially with the way Jacksonville's defense has been playing, Baltimore has the best defense in the league right now. It's probably them or Chicago, but even Chicago didn't play well last week. Baltimore's defense is pretty legit, and New Orleans is going to have to go in there. But I've always been a believer that a great offensive coach can go get it done against even the best defenses, especially with Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Kamara, Ingram. I just think it's going to be way too much for this Baltimore defense. They haven't seen an offense anything close to this yet. I'm taking New Orleans. I think it'll be close, probably about a score of like 24-20, but I do think their offense will pull it out.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I'm going to go with the Saints as well. You brought up some really good points. That defense, that Ravens defense over the last 4 games has only allowed 9 points a game, just over 9 points a game, I believe it was. So, really impressive defense. I think they've allowed far less points than anybody else in the league, which is pretty impressive. But, like you said, the Saints, Drew Brees is Drew Brees. They finally got Ingram back, so Ingram, Kamara coming out of the backfield. Saints are rolling. They've won 4 straight now after starting off 0-1. So I think their offense is just kind of going to overpower them. I think this is the game I'm most excited for next week. I think this might be the game of the week, the best defense versus the best offense. But yeah, definitely going with the Saints this week.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I don't know about you, but I'm excited for another week of fun football. Lions are back on. I kind of missed them on the bye week. A lot of good games to be on. We didn't get to hit all the good games. So hopefully it's another good week of football. But we will be back next week to go over our predictions again. And thank you guys so much for listening.